Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to the Element Podcast.
So you're Crip or a Blood?
Around here, as you notice, our logo is red and blue.
Mm-hmm.
We support both sides.
There you go.
Bringing people together.
That's it.
Since 2006. When was Tailwaters formed?
2007. You were close.
Yeah.
Our 11th anniversary is coming up in about another 2 months.
That's right. We're going to have a part of that a little bit.
We are, dude.
Right?
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Margaritas and crawfish.
Sweet.
Dude, crawfish?
Crawfish.
You are speaking my language.
Man.
I
It's going to be a
hammered
good
some.
day.
We had crawfish a couple weeks ago, and it was one of those things where we had like 6 people that were going to eat crawfish, maybe 5 or 6 people. 6 people, yeah. And so we ordered like 30 pounds. Well, I'm like a 5-pound guy anyway myself, usually, you know. So like, and then there's like women in this bunch, you know. And one of the 6 was my mom. And she like all of a sudden decided she didn't like crawfish all of a sudden for some reason. And then my best friend's fiance was another one, and she tried one, and like, you know, if you haven't dealt with crawfish much, it can be a tedious process to get it done, you know. And so she like picked through it forever, and I don't even know if she even ate it. And then so it was like, okay, now we're down to 4 people with 30 pounds of crawfish, and I just went off, dude. And there was one section, we had them on this ice chest, and I ate probably like 5 plates, and I get down to the 6th plate, and like there was a lot of juice in there, and I don't know, like I guess they cooked these in a different batch or something. Oh my goodness.
Lit you up?
Lit me up, dude. I was sweating so hard. It was one of those things where like I try to be pretty tough overall, but I almost cried. It was bad.
Now, I've got a good friend of mine that's from Marshall, and his dad's Cajun, so he fancies himself a Cajun. So we went out and had crawfish. Of course, he orders the extra hot crawfish. Of course, he has a little bit of a drinking problem. Drinks a lot of beer with his crawfish, so he gets through the hot crawfish, no problem. The next morning, on the other hand, the crawfish spice was stuck underneath his nails.
Ooh.
He's just driving to work with the AC full blast with his hand stuck in the AC vents because his fingers were on fire.
Dude, I had the same experience with this crawfish, or similar experience, where the next morning when I got up and got in the shower, I took a shower, my eyes, when I started rubbing my face, I started burning, and then after I get this like 5-minute shower and I washed my hands several times at this point, I'm still, like, later on that day, when I would touch my face, I could feel it burning from my hands. That's not, like...
It's crazy.
It's crazy, man.
They don't ever seem that hot when I eat them, you know?
If you keep eating them, that's the thing. That's the key. Like, you got to eat them fast. So if you can't eat them fast, you probably don't like crawfish. But, well, hey, we might have to do, like, a demonstration sometime. Maybe we'll do a crawfish demonstration when we
Cinco de Mayo.
do the Cinco de Mayo
I
thing.
think it's perfect.
Yeah, well, how to eat a crawfish.
There you go.
Because, like, I feel like from here east, and we grew up east of here about 70 miles, you start getting into this little, like, section where you're not really, like, southwestern, like a lot of Texas people are, and you're not really Cajun. So you're like,
we get the best of both worlds because we get that
steak,
Tex-Mex stuff going on,
Tex-Mex, you get
and Cajun all at the same time.
Get the cattle.
There's a distinct dividing line, and it's I-45.
Yeah,
It's true. You go east of 45, you can find pork barbecue. You can't find it west of 45. But then you also get into your crawfish, and that the Piney Woods is much more southern than it is Texan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's we talk about this a lot on the podcast, but like it's kind of weird how Texas gets lumped into certain cultures and stuff sometimes, and it's so regional.
Yeah,
though,
people can't grasp how big Texas is. It's not, and I was thinking about this actually on the way here because we were driving through different parts of the state, really. Over 70 miles, you can see different terrain features and stuff. And I'm thinking, as I've grown older and experienced more things and traveled more, which is kind of what we're going to talk about today, the more I realized that I don't look at things as state lines. When I was a little kid, it was really cool to cross the state line. I was like, I'm in Louisiana,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But like,
Nothing changed.
Nothing
Well, it
changed.
looks
you know?
just like home.
Yeah, exactly. But like now, as I'm older, like every time that like the region changes, you know, you go from Piney Woods to Blackland Prairie to, you know, Cross Timbers to where we are now. We're in the Trinity River bottom, you know, like you start noticing that that's kind of what really matters as far as like an outdoorsman goes, you know, because you have different opportunities in all these different places. It's not really like crossing state lines or designating something as Texan or Louisianan or Arkansasian or however you're going to say that one. You know, it's more about like knowing that specific niche or that area and being able to recognize that like things change on a more micro scale than just state lines because those are human creations.
Right. Yeah. For sure. I mean,
Except for Oklahoma. That's completely different.
You feel a little different when you cross that state line.
I cross the Red River. I'm like, ugh, I gotta take a shower when I get home.
I have a song that will be on my next album about that. Actually, it's a positive note though.
Oh,
it's,
good.
It's not a negative.
Yeah. Sorry, Oklahoma listeners.
So if you're listening right now, this is our Gone in 60 Minutes podcast, and we've got our good buddy and manager,
Yeah, sales manager.
sales manager of Tailwaters Fly Fishing Company here in Dallas, Texas, and we're in the fly shop.
Yes,
But
we are.
The company.
We are in the lounge area of the fly shop, surrounded by our beautiful bar.
Yes, and
So
you're listening to Sean Polk, and we have a different side to Tailwaters than this shop right here. So what's that?
So we have the retail side, which you guys are sitting in right now, but we also have a full-on travel service. So we are basically travel agents for approximately 40 lodges, primarily on the international side. We do have a trip to Louisiana for redfish and about 8 places in Alaska, but we also represent Mexico, Belize, Bahamas, Honduras, Bolivia, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Venezuela, when things are good down there, along with Russia and the Seychelles Islands in the Indian Ocean.
Those are
Man.
all places.
Talk about the list.
Yeah, those are all places.
Is that
are on the list.
Kamchatka in Russia?
Yeah, Kamchatka. I forgot Brazil too.
Yeah.
I might have said that one.
Okay.
So, yeah, but we're definitely not the biggest one out there as far as fly fishing travel, but we do represent the same spots as all the other companies do.
Mm-hmm. So, of all those places you just listed, how many have you visited personally?
I think my total is only up to maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome.
Bummer.
yeah, I know. Though I like to say there's a couple bucket list trips. I have been on one of the bucket list trips.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that one here.
Sure.
Cool.
Down the road.
So our plan today is this is our 60th episode, and 60 is a weird number. It's not like 50. It's not like 100. Those are round numbers. But 60 splits 3 ways pretty evenly. And Casey and I, being very poor and not working at fly shops and fly companies, have not maybe done a ton of traveling. And so we needed some help. So we brought Sean on to do this for us. And he's going to have some incredible destinations and tips or ideas why he likes that spot. And we got the same thing going on. So we're going to split it 20 for each guy here. And the first thing that I'd like to do, though, is for us to kind of go around the horn and talk about what our favorite thing about traveling is, or why it's important, or maybe it's not important, but we just like to do it, whatever that might be. So we'll start with you, Casey.
For me, traveling does a lot of things, of course. I'm not one of those basic white girls who's like, I love to travel. I don't love it for the travel itself, but traveling has so many benefits. Like it's just like I've talked to you before too. Like I don't camp to camp. I camp to hunt. I camp to fish. I do all these things, and travel is like a means to get there, right? And when you go to these places, you can learn so much that you can take back with you and apply to everyday stuff, whether that's your outdoor lifestyle or your life or just people you encounter or whatever. You have all these experiences that help you build who you are, and that's kind of what I really see as a benefit to travel. And then kind of more on a outdoor scale, it's crazy how you can go to places and learn about like a quarry. So like whether you're fishing or hunting or whatever you're doing, how that can teach you so much about the thing that you get to do back home all the time. So like, for instance, I go to Colorado and fish. I can learn a lot about what it's like to come back here and bass fish in East Texas and apply things that I learned there to what I get to do often. So that's kind of my thing on travel. And I like to eat a lot. So traveling and eating are kind of, they go hand in hand.
Eating's good for sure, man.
Yeah.
What about you, Sean?
Well, I think part of the whole travel thing is, like Casey said, it's a means to an end as far as going out and finding new species. For me, most of my travel has been centered around trying to catch a new type of fish.
Yeah.
And going someplace I've never fished before. So there's that cool thing, you're checking off the list of species that, I've never done this before. And that's kind of how it started off at. But now it's gotten around more to the experience of just leaving Texas and go and see what's out there. I get a kick out of not only catching a new species, but talking to the locals, meet the local culture, eat their food, see how they live, find out, what these guys do day in and day out. So, I love talking to my guides and like, so when you're not guiding, what do you do? What hobbies and stuff. And it'll blow your mind what, this guide in a backwater third world country, and you talk to him and the dude like knows like pop culture and knows more about U.S. politics than you do. And it's like, what? So yeah, I mean that's a lot of it. Now it's not to sound cliche and total white girl, but oh my God, it's all about the journey.
Hey, that's true, man.
But that's it. That's part of it, dude. It's see some cool stuff out there and you leave your comfort zone.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I mean, for me, there's, I'm in agreement with what you guys say, and there's a lot to it, man. There's more to it than even we've had the chance to kind of lay out for the listener so far. But one thing I've talked to you about this before. A lot of my friends or guys that I weren't even like great friends with, but like, we hung out in school or whatever, in high school. A lot of these buddies of mine from high school, I'll see them. I moved back now to like more towards where I grew up now. And I'll see these guys around town or something, maybe at the convenience store. I saw one today when we stopped to get gas. And, I'll say, hey, what's going on, man? What you been up to? And most of them, this is just part of growing up small town, blue collar. And I'm the same way still, blue collar, but they just kind of go, oh, just been working, and I don't even know where they work really. So like, that's, I guess usually my next question. I'm like, hey, I hate to say this, but I don't know where you like, what are you doing? But, it's kind of hard to carry a conversation on sometimes. And I feel like that, I've got a list here of 20, like we said, places, destinations that I think everybody should either go or not go. But through the band, I traveled all over the place, because I didn't have to pay for it, so at least not often. And so that, I have like a ton of experiences. And so like, I feel like anywhere I go, whether it's talking to one of my high school buddies or, hanging out with you, Sean, or, if I'm, when we come to the shop, in a couple months and meet people that are here, just being a part of this, grand opening celebration, anniversary, like I'll have something that I can relate to a lot of different people. Oh, one time I saw something like that too, and it was really cool, or I've been up there to Minneapolis, we went this last summer, just things like that. It kind of helps you be relatable and carry on conversation with people that normally like I said, even these guys that I grew up with, like I can't even carry a conversation on them sometimes because there's nothing going on in their life really other than just work, and that seems to be the most important thing because they always tell me that, you know. So that's one thing that I like about traveling, and I still relate to my buddies there, I guess, because I'm still broke. But I choose to. They actually have more money than me, like no doubt, because they're hard workers, you know.
Well,
but
if all you ever do is work and you don't spend any of it, you're gonna have some.
that's the way I think of it, you know. It's like, I mean, I could sit here and work a lot, and I'll have some money and have like that financial peace, you know, and.
Yep.
But I won't have the experiences. So, you know, one way or another, what are you going to have? You're going to have money, or you're going to, you know, and some people have both. So these are the people that book with Tailwaters Company.
Well, it helps.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So
That's why I get to go travel. It's not because I'm making it rich at the fly shop.
Right.
It's that I've been given a lot of really, really cool opportunities, and very fortunate that the place where I am that I got to go out and do a lot of the stuff. But
for sure.
There's a lot of it, though, that I did outside of the fly shop. So, I mean, you can do it on the cheap and dirt bag it. There's no doubt.
For sure. We've been doing it for the last several years.
Yeah.
I mean, it all boils down to, it doesn't all boil down to this. And this is why most of our talking points today will be fishing.
Yeah.
Because when, like Casey was saying, you go hunt, what'd you say? Something about rats. Tell me that
okay.
again.
So the example I used on the way here was like, you can, hop on a flight somewhere for, $150 round trip and buy a $30 fishing license, fish for 5 days sometimes, as a out-of-state resident, or no, I mean, an out-of-state non-resident. And then if you want to go hunt and have a similar experience, it's going to cost you $300 or $400 for out-of-state license to go do this thing, and then you're going to have limited access and limited opportunity because it's so much harder to hunt. You got to get your weapon there, and then you only get to shoot one thing usually when you go do stuff, as opposed to fishing. You can show up, hop off the plane, fish the creek next door. Like, it's like that fast.
Your actual statement was you're going to spend $120 to kill a rat.
That's
or
right. That's what it was. Yeah. I was saying, you're going to buy a small game license for $120 to shoot rats.
So like it's definitely cheaper to do the fishing thing overall. I mean, I'm sure you've been to some pretty exquisite lodges, or you guys probably book some, that you get you might have had a chance to go with some guys that have done that thing, or you've at least seen it pretty, somewhat firsthand. And I mean, it kind of does come down to like, do you want to spend $50 or more a night on a hotel, and on a 3 or 4 or 5 day trip spend $150 to $250 extra, or do you want to camp and sometimes do that for free,
Right.
or cheap? And so like those things, that's one thing, and you do that like over the course of like maybe 3 or 4 different things, and you start saving $500 on a trip, and you go and do something for what you could make in a day or two working, Yeah. And so you gotta choose how you do it, but I think from this point, man, I think it's a good time for us to step in and start telling the listener what we came to tell them, and that is we've got destinations in mind that we either can say that's a great place to go, or a great time to go do this at that place or that area, or don't go do this. And we've got a few of those. We actually had one that we all three chose. We were like, this is a bad situation right now.
It's just funny because that's like the one place you expect to be on the list of, you
yeah.
should try it. Like,
Yeah.
nah.
I didn't want to offend you when you told me, you're like, do y'all have this one on there? And I was like, yeah, did you pick it good or bad?
I did the same thing. I was like, you should say good or bad.
Yeah. And we all agree.
Because I don't want to go and roast this place before when you're thinking it's cool.
That's the only one there's another one I'd roast, but not as bad as that one.
Yeah.
I try not to put too many of the bad
And I'm
ones
going to
on
let those guys say that one. Y'all can figure it out on
Yeah.
your own.
TG
Because I
got
love
that one.
every place.
All destinations are great.
They really, I mean,
they really are.
I think you got to have the experience of like a bad situation sometimes to kind of grow and to learn something,
And I mean, you got to remember that sometimes, like what we think as adults, like at this point in our outdoor journey, as being like kind of rough and not really a great place, as a 10 or 12-year-old, you might think it's awesome, you know, and like, because that's how small your world is. But then as you travel and you do all these things change.
We talked about that recently, I think, something like that. How the Ram.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool thing back then. I looked at that picture last night, actually.
Yep.
So anyway, one thing before we get going here, I want to say is this place is awesome.
Yeah.
If you haven't been here,
Thanks.
it's in Dallas, Texas. It's on the west side, but the east side of the Trinity.
The Libby's in the backyard.
We're in West Dallas on the east side of the Trinity.
That's right.
Basically, we're in the design district in between downtown and the Trinity.
Exit Continental, right?
You can do that. That'll
Yeah.
take you just north of the jail. But if you can think of Irving Boulevard and Oak Lawn.
Okay.
A little
Better
bit
access.
closer.
Gotcha. Cool.
We're on the a little bit rougher side of Oak Lawn, though.
Hey, it's exquisite in here. I mean, there's just like they got all kinds of gear. It's huge. I was shocked when we first came in here. First time I had been here into this location was at the Full Draw Film Tour last year, and I like the photography in here. It just makes you like when you come in here, you're automatically like, take my money, you know, like.
That's what we're here for.
That's
and,
exactly.
If nothing else, I've got free cold beer every day of the week.
They're just lucky people here that get to work here. But they got cool swag, cool hats, cool everything's. I mean, even the sales managers are pretty cool.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. So anyway, we'll get to going here. You know, the first person that I want to go is me. And so I'll start us out, and I'm going to start with my big dog here. We're going to go through, like I said, destinations that are worth going to and destinations that you probably should stay away from. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work out, but we're going to just go. And so Sean will be right after me, and we'll just keep a little round robin going here. So my first place is Lake Williston, British Columbia, and that's pretty specific, but generically or overarching would be British Columbia in general. I feel like that place is awesome. I got to go film a sheep hunt the last 2 years up there, and the lake is the 7th largest in the world by volume. And man, we saw stone sheep, grizzly bears. We had like kind of a grizzly encounter, like 300-400 yards. You know, he took off. Luckily. The black bears are like coyotes to them. I mean, they're just all the residents are like, and the guides are just like, yeah, we just shoot them every chance we get, you know, and it's all the time, you know. So we got to see I saw a wolf both years, a black wolf.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible. Just the experience there, beautiful country, and it's close enough to society that you don't feel super like locked out of, you know, I mean, if you don't want to get lost, but you can get lost pretty quick. Like, you definitely don't want to miss your flight in Fort St. John. We did that. Go back and listen. And the lake trout fishing is top notch. So, Sean, what about you?
Well, I was going to start off with my first one, but I think I'm going to save that for a bit later.
Okay.
A little teaser.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Battenkill River in Vermont.
Oh, cool.
So, there's a certain like mega fly fishing company that has Battenkill this and Battenkill that and Battenkill everything. So I used to work for that company many moons ago and got to go up there for some meetings and got to go fish that famed Battenkill River. Super beautiful river. Horrible fishing. Oh my goodness. The locals are like, yeah, if you catch something out of here, you're going to be doing pretty good. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's a beautiful river though, but yeah, I got to fish the owner stretch, as they called it. So you thought, oh man, this ought to be pretty good, but yeah, really, not that many fish in that river.
Dang,
So
bummer. Bummer on that.
so yeah, I'm gonna put that one as like beautiful to visit, not so much on the fishing. But yeah, that was.
It's a good tip.
I know. So yeah, that was kind of cool. That's like when they talk about classic storied rivers in America, and especially up in the Northeast, is one of them. Yeah, I got to fish it. I didn't catch anything, but I got to fish it.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring it a little closer to home, at least in our state. Okay. Mm-hmm. Terralingua, Texas. If you've ever been to Terralingua, Texas, you
Dude,
wanted
did you fish
to
like
get
a
there.
ditch out there?
Okay,
There's no water.
This isn't fishing. That's the key. But neat thing is, I was on top of a mesa in Terralingua, Texas. There's a pila up there, like a water tank. There were little catfish swimming around that pila. And this is way up on top of a desert mountain. So I don't know how they got there. I didn't have a rod, but it would have been cool to catch one just so you did it. But I was out there with work, actually, and got to hunt some javelinas. And, man, javelinas are a vicious creature. Like, by far, the meanest thing I've ever hunted or messed around with. Like,
Really?
Don't want to jack around with them. But it was a really cool place. And the javelinas, like, are just kind of like the way to get you there, but the scenery and the beauty of that far, far, far West Texas stuff, it's just unreal, man. It's unreal how cool it is out there. And now that the bighorns are kind of making a comeback, and that's actually kind of why we were out there, was with the bighorn restoration stuff. And it is just so cool to get out there and be in a place that it feels so empty, but it's a good empty. Mm-hmm. It's a really good deal.
Cool, man.
That's awesome.
From there, I'm going to take you to northern New Mexico. It's a place called Valle Vidal.
Yeah.
It's fake. It's like...
Isn't that Val Kilmer's place?
I don't know. This was originally, I believe, an oil company. Maybe, who was it? An oil company, like owner, like one of the big ones, like Chevron, Shell, something like that. I can't remember. Owned this and owed a ton of taxes, and I think it ended up coming into the New Mexico Fish and Game or whatever, the National Forest System or whatever. I don't know exactly the story there, but man, this place, it's everything's green, everything, all the grass. There's clear flowing, beautiful rivers that are just kind of amber colored. And creeks, rainbows every afternoon. I mean, you will see a rainbow. It's going to rain, and you're going to see one. I mean,
rise into dries or what?
Yeah, Rio Grande cutthroats.
Okay,
Rio Grande cutthroats would rise to
sky.
dries.
Yeah.
Rainbows in the skies. Rio Grande cutthroats underneath the skies.
Yeah,
and they would rise to caddis and hoppers pretty
cool.
well. We had a kind of a rough go at it. I've heard it's like 100 fish days could happen there, but we didn't really have that happen.
Is that all public or?
Yeah, it's all public right in there.
Okay.
It was 35 miles from pavement where we were at.
Oh,
I mean,
man, that's awesome.
Either way, it was unreal, dude. Like big elk. We saw elk everywhere. I mean,
So y'all got me stuff. I got to add stuff to my list of stuff to do now.
yeah, it's going to happen.
Thanks.
The listener has their pen and pad out, hopefully.
Tell my wife our bank account's about to get a little bit smaller.
That's it. Mine can't go much smaller, so I can cut it in half and I'll have $16.
there you go.
No, that's about all I had to say about that. And we did see Merriam's turkeys, and we actually have a video called Valley of Life that's on the internet from that trip, and you can see some of the time lapses, some stars, and just daytime lapses and stuff. It was just beautiful.
Well, cool. I'm going to continue the New Mexico theme. Mm-hmm. So outside of Pecos, New Mexico, which if you go to Santa Fe, Pecos is about 20 minutes east of there. And then you go to Pecos, then you go about 45 minutes off the pavement, up and down Forest Service roads. Get to a place called Cow Creek Ranch. Mm-hmm. Set up in a valley, about 4,500 acres. Now, this is one of the very few places I've been to that's actually private water. But if there's the Disneyland for trout fishing, it's Cow Creek.
Really?
It's not fishing as much as it's catching.
Okay, so I've been to Cowles, New Mexico.
So this is Cow Creek outside Pecos.
This is north of Pecos, I believe.
Well, you go to Pecos and you spend about 45 minutes on it. It's set up in a valley. It's surrounded on national forest land on all three sides.
Okay.
It's a guy here in Dallas, a real estate developer. It's his place. He bought this place from the original family. He was in a bidding war with Don Johnson for this place. Bought it, fixed it up a little bit, and then told the guy, said, hey, start stocking trout. And it's got all four species. He said, I'm going to fly up here every 2 weeks and fish it. When I say it's done, that's when you stop stocking. 18 months later, at 50,000 pounds of trout, nothing less than 16 inches, he said, all right, this will do.
Holy smokes, dude.
So it's got browns, brooks, rainbows, and cuts?
Yes.
Man.
The bottom 7 miles is all manicured. He built like 40 holes structure.
Oh, my God.
Built six ponds. He calls them lakes, but they're tanks. Which that was a whole other story about how he got his tanks and didn't have permission, but a little political donation to the governor. He got permission to build these tanks. But the upper section of it's all wild native cuts.
Yeah.
So Rios, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
That's cool.
And so but the ones in the lower section, are those Rios as well? Or are they?
They could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that to go and catch a 25 to 26 inch rainbow or brown was not unheard of. It was like, I got a 26. The guy's like, well, I did too, and I did too, and I did too. I was like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that's probably one of only. There's another place that's on here that I went trout fishing. That was along those same lines.
And so it's open to the public for a fee or whatever? Or?
For a fee, yeah. Some of the guide shops or fly shops in Santa Fe, you can get day access. You can pay a rod fee, or you can rent the whole place out by the week.
Yeah. Man,
So,
it's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I'm going to take us across the National Divide and go on up into the square state of Colorado, and going to go a little more urban, though. So, in Montrose, Colorado, the Uncompahgre River runs right through town. And I fished the Uncompahgre, never saw another soul fishing, and had one of the best days I've ever had. I was catching just slob rainbows. I mean, nothing long, but, that 15, 16-inch fish, good fish, a couple browns along. In a, afternoon, I caught, in 20, 25 fish, something like that. Not another soul in sight. There's people jogging by. There's a junkyard or like a what do you call it? Like iron reclamation place. Like you can see the fence of it right here next to the river. And I'm out here wet wading because I'm actually elk hunting. I'm up there and I'm just there to fish. And I'm just slaying fish. And it's the funnest day. They aren't giants, but they're eager. The place is awesome. And if you don't get a chance to go to Tailwaters because you're in Colorado, there's a really cool little fly shop there in town with a really old guy who will give you a free patch that he makes that has like a rainbow on it and stuff. So I think that like back in the day when people wore vests all the time, they'd sell these patches on their vests like as like a little membership thing or whatever. Yeah, he's still a vest guy. But man, it was just like a cool experience, and it's just like one of these little overlooked fisheries that nobody ever hits. And then if you get the chance and you have a little more time, you venture out of Montrose and go up river a little bit to the tailwater of Ridgeway Dam back there, Ridgeway Reservoir. I think they call it Pockepechuck or something like that. It's like stocked just with giant Snake River cuts and giant rainbows. And if you ever see like a 25, 26-inch rainbow coming out of Colorado, it's probably from that little bitty stretch right there. And they're hitting like 28, size 28 little bitty, midge larvae and stuff. It's crazy, but it's a cool little river, man.
You probably had like an incredible like mental state also on that river.
Dude,
it's like one of those euphoric moments when it just gets even better.
Zen was mine that day. We'll talk more. We'll talk more about why later.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of like this thing we're doing where like have this geographic route that we're running kind of.
Yeah.
Not that it's any particular direction, but like I don't want to just take it right now at least from Colorado to like somewhere, way off. For some reason, I just feel like that. But
we can keep following the roadmap. I'm following you guys.
I like it. If you guys can stay with it. I know you've got some stuff that's out there, but
but I can keep following this roadmap for a ways.
Okay, so I'm going to come. This may not fit into your roadmap. Sorry. I'm going to come back kind of towards home a bit, and this is in northern Oklahoma. And we had a place up there several years ago that we hunted deer. And the place was, the area was like intermittent with CRP and creek bottom stuff, and then a lot of wheat was the ag in the area. And for those of you that don't know, pheasants like to eat wheat, and there was birds everywhere up there. Like we had, for one, if you look at a map of the U.S. With the quail distribution, Oklahoma is like a stronghold for quail, and so we had a ton of quail there. And we also, I guess because of just the great CRP and the wheat in the area, man, we had pheasants like crazy up there. I mean, like, it was all you could do to not just hop out every time you saw one on the side of the road. They were just in the ditches. And, man, we had this CRP field that was like, I guess they get pretty good rain up there in that area. But we had the CRP field that was like over my head for most of it. And we walked through that thing and we were just jumping pheasants. We couldn't even see them most of the time. They were just like, and go off or whatever. But man, like, I think we shot a limit just walking that field right next to wheat. And you didn't have to dogs or nothing,
Any chance that's public up there?
There's not a lot of public,
Okay.
Unfortunately. I actually haven't looked to see if there's much public in that area. But I do know that there was a lot of that stuff is either, I know a lot of it's private in that particular area, and then there's a couple little outfits out there, and like this place was, or one of the guys in town there that was in association with the landowner that we hunted on. He had pretty sure he had deer hunters, and they didn't know, but he had bird hunters and turkey hunters, and all. It was kind of like call before you come, even though you're leasing this year round, So, but it was the bird hunting in north central Oklahoma was pretty amazing. At least back several years ago.
All right, gonna put that on my list of places to take my dog next year.
You got a bird dog?
Yeah, I got a Brittany, man.
Dude,
Oh, cool.
I got a French,
That's what I want.
A French Brittany.
I don't know about all that French
Yeah, I
stuff.
don't know what that means.
They're smaller, and they're mine's tricolor.
Oh, that's cool.
He's speckled red and black and white.
Oh, cool.
That's
A little
pretty
bit
cool.
Smaller, yeah.
That's cool.
Tolbin is his name.
Tobin.
That's my bird dog. All right. See, we can have whole other conversations.
We could.
All right, so I'm going to bring us back on the road map we were going earlier.
Okay, yeah, take us back out there.
So, Steamboat Springs, Colorado. On, shoot. Man, I forgot the name of the river. Oh,
Yampa.
The Yampa.
Yeah.
Yampa.
So, you got the Yampa, but on the Yampa is the only private tailwater in Colorado, Catamount Dam, which is just below Stagecoach Reservoir. So, like I said, I get to do some really cool stuff with my job, and this is one of the cooler things I've done. So, we got to go up there, checking out this ranch one time, and the guy's like, "Hey, so if you guys really want to do some good fishing, we can go to this other place. You have to pay a rod fee, but we got you guys taken care of. We're going to put you out here." Cool. This was in February because I remember it was over Valentine's Day. And
Do you have a wife?
not at the time.
It's a good deal.
Didn't even have a girlfriend then, so it was
Oh,
perfect.
man.
Perfect.
But there was 3 feet of snow. We were wearing snowshoes to get down to the river. But when we got there, you had about a 300-yard stretch from the dam to a fence, and that was your section to fish. And the next section was like a mile long, and there were guys that had the next section below us were fishing at our fence, casting upstream. They're like, "There's got to be something about this." And the guy's like, "Oh, yeah, they want to fish this water, but that's the closest they can get." All right, cool. So in the course of the day fishing, rainbows, cut bows, and browns, nymphs, midges, streamers, dries. My biggest fish was a 25-inch cut bow.
Man.
I didn't move more than 50 yards all day. Because there was snow on the ground, I had a bottle of whiskey that I just stuck it in the snowbank behind me. So, yeah, we'd go catch a couple fish, walk over there, take a shot, get back to fishing. Truly, holy cow. And I told the guy, "So what do I catch him on?" He's like, "Just pick something, throw it in the water."
Tired of telling people what to throw.
Yeah. So usually I listen to the guide, and I'm like, "All right, well, you set my rig up for me." He set me up a big old thingamabobber with an egg and a San Juan worm. And I just looked at him and said, you gotta be kidding me. He's like, no, seriously. This is all you
trashy.
need.
Yeah.
So after about 5 fish doing that, that's when I started going through my fly box, just seeing what I could catch them on.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh, you can use dries in February.
Dude.
So, yeah.
That's
Put that
so
on your
cool.
list of places to go and experience if
I've
you
actually
just want to go catch stupid trout that doesn't take any effort.
I don't know if I fished the Yampa River, but there's a music fest up there in Steamboat that I went to in I think 2008. A cool deal, you know, like the town's just cool
Like,
people.
There's a
you
couple
know.
Texans that show up for that one.
Yeah, there's a few. So I went up there and we skied. That was the first time only time I've ever skied. Because you get this package. It's like a ski during the day, music at night kind of deal, you know, and that's what we did. And I wanted to work some fishing in, but I don't think we did. But yeah, cool area up there.
Yeah. I'm going to stick in Colorado
Sure.
and talk about why I was on the level of Zen whenever I was catching those fish last time. It's because I had just arrowed a over-the-counter archery bull elk in Colorado. And if you've never been elk hunting and you want to do it, you want to try it out, there's no reason to go and try to do it outfitted or try to wait until you accumulate all these points to draw a good tag. Like the availability in Colorado, if you're willing to put a little bit of work into it and walk a lot, there are plenty of elk. You went with me last year.
We should have killed.
And, yeah, we should have killed some elk
Yeah.
a couple times, right? Like, you will have an experience. You will learn how to elk hunt, and it is so cool to get up there and do it. And then that year, I actually took a bull, and the cool part about it is that I got to do it with my family. I got to do it with Mom and Dad. They helped me pack the elk out. And then I got married that year, and me and my wife ate elk meat for pretty much 11 months and 20 days until I left the next year and didn't kill one. But anyways, it's just a great experience. If you've never done that and you always dreamed about elk hunting and you're able-bodied enough, go and do it because there's no reason to wait. It's not expensive. I did that whole trip for less than $1,000 as long as you split gas with 2 other people.
Yeah.
And it can be done.
So our roadmap,
Yeah. You want to mess it up
I'm
again?
going to keep it in Colorado, actually.
Oh, wow. How about that?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Colorado's a great state. But our roadmap has caused us to probably get off of schedule, and I don't care because this is good combo. So we're
Yeah, I thought your schedule was a little facetious like whenever you first started.
Was it?
Yeah.
It's
I was
going to be
like,
way more than 60 minutes, I can
Yeah.
already tell.
Yeah.
it's going to be.
But
So
that's awesome because there's a lot of good stuff going on here.
yeah, I was worried
There's
about
good
this.
synergy in the group right now.
There is, man. We've got some conglomeracy. Let's see. Okay, so Colorado. I'm going to head back up to the north a bit, and I'm going to say the Rocky Mountain National Park. It's one of my favorite places in the world. It's not a place you're going to catch huge trout, but it's beautiful. I mean, the vistas are unreal. Just huge mountains. I think they've got, I don't know what the biggest peak there is, but in the park actually is, but it's worth talking about apparently because people go and try to crest it, you know. But they're just, man, it's unreal. Like there's a reason it was one of the first national parks, you know. It's unbelievable. And because it's so high, like the weather in July and August is like, you know, mid-70s or whatever, and it's just like it's the place for me to go when it's 105 here, you know, and humid. And it's like when I go up there in July, it's like just a huge, you know, breath of fresh air, figuratively and literally. But the one thing that I love to go up there and do is catch the almost native or almost 100% pure native greenback cutthroats up there, and that's like one of the most beautiful natives I've seen. And you get to catch them in like legitimate postcard setting high mountain lakes, you know. And most of the park is like it's within pretty close range of like decent amenities and lodging and stuff like that. So if you're not like the camping kind, I mean, you've got Estes Park right there, and it's one of those things like you take your wife or girlfriend or whatever, and she's going to have something to do as well because it's like shop central there. I mean, just all kind of nichey things, that women like. So I like doing that. There's a ton of elk in the park. I took a picture of one last year. You could probably scroll back on our Instagram and find it. Giant elk in velvet. Bunch of mule deer. Actually, my background here is from Rocky. And there's a pretty good mule deer right there.
Yeah. Pretty big, in.
Yeah. So anyway, that's you can also fly into Denver for cheap usually, like via Spirit or Frontier or something like that if you look. And then it's like 90 minutes to the park if you're in a car. And the Big Thompson, you can come in down the Big Thompson. There's a road that follows it. Pretty fun. Like solid rainbows and browns in there, and like really cool pocket water and stuff in there. It's fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to continue on. We're going to detour to the northwest a little bit, but the Rogue River in Oregon. So, buddies and I, we flew up to Sacramento and then drove about 4 hours north of Medford and spent about 4 days fishing this river in the wintertime looking for winter steelhead, which, if you get into steelhead fishing, you've got the winter runs and the summer runs. And the summer runs it's beautiful weather, it's nice outside, and you get a lot of fish, but they're on the small side. But the winter run, you're swinging for the fences. Not a lot of fish, but they're going to be the biggest fish of the year. So he said, we're going to swing for the fences. And went up there, and my one and only wild steelhead was caught up there on the very last drift of the first day.
Oh, man.
Oh, cool.
Which was awesome because the next 3 days would have sucked if I hadn't caught a fish. Because there is a certain point in your mind you start going, are there really fish here? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure there's fish here. Maybe let me go back and fish that spot. No, got to keep fishing. So, yeah, that was an awesome trip with a couple buddies of mine. And this is a trip that you can do on the cheap. Now, I'm sure there's probably campgrounds and hotels, but we went up there and we were couch surfing. Made some friends with some dudes up there, and they're like, dude, come up here and stay with us. One of them had a trailer in his backyard. He goes, I got a travel trailer. You can sleep like 4 dudes. So cost of airfare, split the cost of a car. And then, we ate at his house. I think we might have eaten out like 2 or 3 times. One of the coolest little dive bars I've ever been to in the middle of the day, and where we were, playing ping pong and eating, basically bowling alley hot dogs, drinking really good beer, and we met a dominatrix that was spanking one of the guys. It was a lot of stuff going on that trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Rogue River, if you haven't been in the Northwest and experienced those coastal rivers, they're absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's, everything's lush and green and the water's clear and you got mountains in the background, and winter steelheading is cold and miserable, but when you do connect, you're like, it's all worth it. So,
yeah.
That's I'm going to be heading up there this summer, actually.
Yeah.
So we're flying, I think, to San Francisco. And then I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a chance to catch the McLeod red band on the way up through in California. I'm going to have a chance, I think, if I can talk like the other 3 non-fishermen on this trip into like just giving me a few minutes. And then we're going to head up through Oregon. And I don't know, that's a good, that's something I'm interested in seeing, is what's going to
outside
happen
of
up there.
Texas, I think the Northwest would be like my next spot to live.
Really?
It's just,
Yeah.
there's so much water up there. If you want to fish, it's just,
I went up there.
You can't drive without crossing a bridge going, there's a spot to fish.
Yeah. I went up there, how was it, February? I think I went up there in February to alleviate my brother-in-law and his wife so they could go on a vacation for a couple days when we were taking care of kids. And but I got to fish a little bit. And I went to a fly shop, and like I wanted to catch fish, and then they started to set me up with steelhead stuff, and I was like, I just want to catch something while I'm here, But I went ahead and did the steelhead thing, and needless to say, steelheading and a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old don't go together very well.
Yeah.
So I had about 30 minutes worth of fishing time, which
You were
was,
the 9-year-old?
Yeah, I cried a lot, but it was worth it either way. Like you said, the view is just beautiful, and then just to see like those, just the rivers there are just different.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it's just like, and it's if you're not prepared for it, it's almost a little bit frantic because the water's so fast sometimes and stuff. You know, but it's cool. I would like to make it back up there. I don't know if I will. I don't know when, but it's neat. But so since we talked about really, really cold things, I'm going to take us down and warm up a little bit. We're going to hop on a plane from Sacramento and come on down to, well, where are we going to fly to? I guess you could fly into Corpus. We're going to go to.
Dang, we're going across country.
You and I have talked about this. Padre Island National Seashore, right here in Texas. All right. This place really taught me. I had a very basic understanding of the outdoors growing up. I understood that I like to hunt and fish and just do the redneck thing. And then Pins is what we call it, Padre Island National Seashore. Pins taught me to appreciate more than just the fish or the animal. Pins taught me to appreciate the place I was in and appreciate the moment. And it's hard to explain. You just need to go experience things like this in your own place. It's special to you. But when you are driving down a beach, going 5 to 10 miles an hour, searching for, the splash of a fish or, a certain terrain change in the beach, which if you've ever been to beaches, there aren't a lot of terrain change, but you can see, when the submerged sandbars are changing and when there's breaks in them and stuff. And when you really get down and you examine details like that, man, it just it increases your appreciation for a place so wild. And it's almost, and this is going to be pretty cliche, but it's almost poetic because you can see so much more depth to what is actually there and what most people get to see. Most people read a book. Some people understand books. It's kind of what it's like at the beach, and it's pretty cool. And then to add as a bonus, if you go walk around up in the sand dunes, you can find whitetail sheds. I found like 5 whitetail sheds in one day out in the sand in the beach.
So cool.
It's crazy cool. And then if you make it all the way down to the jetties, there are like 15, 20-pound jacks going nutso on mullet that are making their southerly migration. And you can hammer those things. And then every once in a while, a school of menhaden will make its way out the jetties, and it's just the kingfish and bonita explode. I mean, it's just the craziest amount of what you would think is like tropical style fishing. It's in our state, man. It's like accessible.
That's something I've never really had the chance to do. That I would love to do is that kind of fishing.
Yeah.
Haven't done a lot of inshore type stuff, you know.
And it's really good for the fly rodder, you know, like you can go down there surf cast, and I've done it. And the whole reason we started going down there were for big sharks. We'd go out, go down and run a big hunk of ray or a bonita or something out and drop it off and wait on a big shark. But while you're sitting there waiting, you got to find something to do. And I fell in love with catching this stuff, in the wake gut and stuff out of the kayak. Let me tell you something. You chase some bonita down in your kayak, you feel like you've done something all right. Them suckers can move. But it's a blast, man, especially if you have a fly rod in hand.
Yeah, and it's cool.
It's funny, while I was waiting for you guys to come up here, I got a text from my buddy who has done that trip quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I told about you guys. I said, hey, I got some guys maybe wanting to go down there, maybe do a film or something. He's like, who are those guys that want to do the SP trip? So, because I kind of picked his brain a little bit when we were fishing last week. And he's like, dude, you got to go when there's a northern front comes in.
Yeah.
When a northern pushes down, because now the wind's coming from the shore, it lays that surf down. He's like, September, October, look for that, and make your run. So it's like,
that's
all
cool.
right.
Instead of
sweating your tail off trying to find whitetail.
Exactly.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
I was like, October sounds really good.
Yeah.
Bow season.
Yeah.
So maybe like that little bit of September.
Yeah. Or first week of whitetail, honestly. It's so hot.
That's
it's
true.
so hot. I mean, it does kind of stink.
But that's the first cold front. That's what he's talking about going.
Oh, I know.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, if it's
Golly.
early October, you're going to be wanting to be there.
We've had a good time in like mid-July because it seems like that's when the most tarpon are there. I don't know if that's the case or not. You probably know better than I do.
I talked to a guy a customer today that I fished with down on Padre. He's got a condo, and he goes down there, and he probably spends 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And he said that he's seen tarpon as late as November. He said the water's 75 degrees right now, so they're already there.
Yeah.
Because that's what and we'll talk a little bit about Florida here down the road, but the tarpon migration follows water that's about 78 degrees, roughly. So if the water's already 75 in Padre, yeah, those tarpon are starting to filter through.
Wow.
So it's early,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Oh, it can
That's
happen.
man, that's on the list as a tarpon for me.
I've jumped 6 down there. Not on a fly rod, but I've jumped 6. I haven't landed one yet, and believe me, it is an addicting thing.
I can imagine.
I had my most epic experience. I may have told this on the podcast before, but I was trolling big rapalas off the back of the kayak, on some decent size, light tackle rods, and jumped a tarpon. I actually was reeling in one of those rapalas, and jumped a tarpon from me to Sean, which is like 7 or 8 feet, and the sucker smokes it, and he explodes as soon as because there's tension right away, explodes, comes up out of the, it's like a 90-pounder, comes up out of the water. Wham! Right on the front of my kayak, throws my Rapala at the same moment. But there's tarpon slime on the front of my kayak, and like as the salt clears out of my eyes, it's just one of those moments when you're just like, oh, like you literally scream out loud because it was just that cool. Such a cool experience.
Totally is.
Yeah.
It's, I talk about tarpon all day long.
Let's go do it. Let's go do it. I want to do it, man, so bad.
I've landed tarpon in 3 countries. I have not got a Texas tarpon yet. That's
Man.
the one I'm looking for on my list is a
Yeah.
Texas tarpon.
It's cool, man. I'm jealous. So I'm going to keep us on the road map in the area.
Are you?
I'm going to head to I guess, to Port O'Connor.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bad one. This is a place not to go, but this is because I probably don't know what the heck I'm doing. And Sean's probably going to be like, oh, if you just did this, you could probably catch them all, whatever. But my dad had a friend that's been a friend of our family for a long time. We call him Coach, and he had a boat down there in Port O'Connor, and gave my dad the key and was like, y'all go down there and catch some redfish and some trout and stuff, We were like, okay, let's go do it. So we took off. Man, I'd never done anything like this, and so we get down there, we get the boat, we hook it up, we take it, we launch it, and we go out. And we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know where we should go. So we just started we were like, okay, let's not get too lost here in this like marsh grass stuff, whatever that is called. And so we kind of stayed in the open. We found this little like cut where there was like pretty good current coming through these 2 little points or whatever, And so we docked the boat up, walked down the beach. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, caught a puffer fish. I don't know if y'all have ever done that.
Yeah. Wait, were y'all on Surfside now?
I don't know where we were, dude.
You said beach, but you're talking about marsh grass.
I mean,
Did
it was
you cross
sandy. I mean, there's
Were there big waves coming in?
no, not really.
Did you go through a jetty?
Yeah. You'd know if you went through the POC jetties, I imagine.
No, we didn't go through jetty.
Okay.
Well, it would be weird to
in
catch
the
a
bay.
puffer in the
Yeah,
bay.
caught a puffer.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that's like pretty good fishing.
I don't know. They caught a dolphin down in Laguna Madre.
Serious? That's
on
cool.
fly, dude. Yeah, it was like a little chicken dolphin.
Yeah,
Or
still.
mahi or
Yeah.
dorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Laguna Madre, they caught like a little
Really?
baby dorado.
That's cool.
So,
cool.
So anyway, somebody caught a puffer fish. Caught a few of these little weird looking fish. Didn't catch any trout, and didn't catch redfish. And so we get ready to head back in that evening, and we don't get far in the boat before we're like, why are we not going anywhere? And the tide had gone down. so
Bunch of lake fishermen learning about tides.
I'm telling you, dude. Hey, that's one of
did
them
you
deals.
not see the prop shooting sand behind you?
No, it wasn't at the time. It was just really stuck, and so we had to get out and walk this boat for like 400 yards, and finally got back into like a channel or whatever.
Find you any oysters along the way?
No,
That's good. You're lucky.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and then we it's probably why we didn't find any fish, I guess. But then we took off. We fished the next day, and we went looking for like reds. All you hear about is tailing reds. Whatever. Their backs out of the water. Didn't find any of that. I never saw a red the whole trip. Didn't catch a red. And so we were like, man, let's go. Kind of late afternoon, we're like, let's go find some birds, get under them, see if we can catch some stuff. Maybe we'll catch some trout. I had read about that on the internet. So we did that, and we caught a ton of sand trout
Yeah.
that were all like a 1/4 inch too small. Every one
Also,
of
they were
them.
all like 11 3/4 inches.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. And we ended up keeping 3. I guarantee you we caught over 100, and we ended up keeping 3. We did see a actual dolphin, the gray porpoise or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was like hammering sand trout when we throw him back in the water. He was there. He was there. So I mean, he would like be nowhere to be seen, and all of a sudden you throw a sand trout back, and he'd be just like, whoop, and like you're like a shark, whatever. But it was one of those places like if you don't know what you're doing, and we didn't, don't go to Port O'Connor.
Okay.
Or probably anywhere in the inshore.
Man, I would say that's most saltwater fishing, dude. It's like anything else. It's a learning curve, and you got to spend time on the water. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't discount Porto just based on that.
Yeah.
There's a reason why there's a lot of people have houses in Port O'Connor. Mm-hmm. But it just like anything else, man. You got to spend time. Like
yeah, for sure.
You probably go out to Lake Fork and do pretty good, right?
That depends, man.
Well,
if it's cats or crappie.
Yeah. I'm usually fishing for big fish, so
yeah.
I can definitely go out there and not catch one a lot of times. So
kind of the same deal.
Yeah.
So
definitely, yeah. I mean, I talked to a lot of people there at the lodge that I can tell when I get done with the conversation, they're probably not going to catch one. They don't know that they don't. They don't know. They don't know. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that one.
Alrighty then. Well, I'm going to continue my trek up north to Forks, Washington, on the Olympic Peninsula.
I was very, very close to there. Fished the Quinault.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we stayed right there.
Okay.
There's a lodge right there on that river, which is just downstream of the Queets and the Sole Duck converge, and the Quinault's about 6 miles before it empties in. So some of you might be familiar with a little movie called Twilight.
Yeah.
Which corrupted the town of Forks. It was a sleepy little village before that stupid movie came out. Now it's probably not so much anymore, but for a while there, it was a lot of goth kids running around trying to find vampires. But back before the movie, when we were there, no, cool little place. So once again, it's those. Once again, there's so much water on the peninsula to fish. You've got the Sole Duck, the Queet, the Hoe, the Quinault,
the Hoe. That's
Hoe.
where what's his name? Mick Dodge lives
on the Hoe River.
Do y'all know Mick Dodge?
The legend of
Mick Dodge. That dude is cool, man. I don't care what anybody says.
I have got a funny story about the Hoe River.
Yeah.
So my buddy of mine that grew up in south of Seattle, he's like, hey, you got to come up here. We're going to fish the peninsula. He goes, it's like 2.5 hours from Seattle. I was like, well, does it get pressured? He's like, nah, people over there won't drive that far to fish. I'm like, we do it all the time down here in Texas. He's like, yeah, it's different up there. It's like, all right. So we went up there, stayed in Forks, rented a car. He's like, hey, let's go fish the Hoe. And we were there in October, and what we were trying to do was time in between the Silvers and the Kings. The Kings run early, then the Silvers, we were trying to find them when they were both crossing. And there's also some late summer run steelheads. So we go up to the Hoe River, and it's a reservation, the Hoe Reservation. So we go to the reservation, and we go to the tribal office, and there's a guy in there. We're like, hey, we're trying to get permits so we can fish. He's like, did you talk to Wally? Like, who's Wally? He goes, my cousin. Well, who's your cousin Wally? He's the game warden. You got to talk to Wally. Like, well, no, we haven't talked to Wally. He's like, well, I'm going to Wally's house. You want to go? Sure. So he starts walking down the street, and we're like, do you want to ride? Yeah, sure. So he jumps in our car, and he takes us to Wally's house. Wally's like, sorry, no, it's closed to non-tribe members. He goes, but you can go across the river, and you can fish over there. All right, fine. So we drive an hour to get to the other side of the river. We get over there, and the river's only like 60 feet across. Well, there's a cast net going a gill net going about 40 feet of the river. This is at low tide, so the mouth of the Pacific is right there. There's gill net, and then us. And we're sitting there fishing and trying to find some fish. And the guys were in the gill net. Oh, the salmon aren't in yet. Okay. Well, we walked up the river a little bit, ran across this Indian kid. He's probably about 14. And we're like, hey, you seen any fish? He's like, I caught like one silver. Oh, really? Cool, man. And I had a flask with me, so I take out my flask and take a chug. He's like, do you mind if I get a hit? I'm like, huh? He's like, yeah. Just come over here so my uncles don't see me. I was like, what are you going to do with that silver? He's like, I don't know. Give me some whiskey. It's yours. Okay. So we had silver. So we had salmon that night.
Dude, that's cool.
It was like every stereotype you could think of.
Bartering with a teenager.
Bartering with a teenage Indian. Fire water for fish.
Oh, man.
That's a good song right there. I think.
But anyway, so I will say that we hit it. The fish really weren't in. They hadn't had enough rain. So I'm going to give this one a can be good, can be really grind to try to find fish.
Yeah.
So we ended up actually driving back to Seattle, going to a place called Flaming Gorge Reservoir, which is a state park south of Seattle, and we got into fish there. It was like the last-minute deal where I caught a really big king, jumped in the car, pulled up, and caught my flight home with like 5 minutes to spare.
It's cool.
It's kind of how we were in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
It was my buddy that he was staying for a couple days, so he had the rent car, so he was in his waders. I was changing out of my waders on the ride to the airport. So, yeah.
That's cool. Me and Tyler have talked about actually just for the novelty of it, wearing your waders to the airport and just like getting off and fishing. You know, just like not even worrying about changing.
Man.
Yeah, it'd be cool. So
just don't carry your boot foot. So when you go through TSA, you got to take everything off.
Yeah, that would be stinky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Dude, I went
the way to
through
go.
Dallas last time. I went to British Columbia. I went through Dallas and they didn't make us take our shoes off.
They didn't do that in Seattle either.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So the Wicked Witch of the West, right there.
They are. Well, E.T. Okay. So, speaking of forks, we're going to come back and just talk about Fork. Lake Fork, Texas.
All right.
Yeah. Right here at the hometown.
Yeah.
So, Lake Fork, Texas. Tyler and I both grew up on this lake and have both caught some big fish out of this thing. And it's not saying that we're good. It's just,
it's a great lake.
It's a great lake, and you got to put in the time to catch the big fish. It's just all there is to it. I mean, you can come down there and be lucky and come on down if you want to. You know, you and the
300,000 a year.
Yeah,
over
exactly.
300,000.
You and the other 2,000 boats on the lake that weekend can try. You know, but
is that just during the McDonald's tournament or the rest of the time?
dude, there's a tournament every weekend.
Yeah, there was one this weekend.
Yeah,
it was unreal. I mean,
it's crazy. And actually, it's like the champion or the Skeeter Bass champs. Those are the ones that like get real busy. It seems like to me. But
they're all nuts.
Yeah, it's all kind of crazy. But in my opinion, I like to fish the lake on the hottest days there is. And Tyler's different on this, and I'll let him tell you about it maybe later. Why? But those bass in the summertime go out and they're super patternable whenever it's super hot, and they are on a bluegill pattern, and that is what they do. They smoke bluegill between 14 and 21 foot of water all day every day, and I love it. It is so much fun when you go out there and actually catch a few fish, you know, because Fork, I mean, if you can get into fish, you're going to catch some pretty good fish. I mean, you're going to catch some 5-6 pounders, you know, which is a good fish. You know, everybody goes to Fork to catch the 10 pluses, of course, but it's just a good time.
But you see the guys on TV, the pros, like if they catch a 4.
Oh, they're freaking out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
for sure.
Like we throw 5 pounders back and don't even look at them
Yeah.
sometimes. And we kind of take for granted the fact that like across the nation, a 5 pounder is a giant.
Yeah, it's a good fish. And it's fun to catch them. And okay, so the thing that makes it for me about summertime though, the hot summer, is the lily pad fishing in the evening. Dude, it is killer. And you might only catch 1 or 2 fish, but the takes are aggressive. And you're like pond fishing for fish on a world-class fishery that has, you know, I've caught multiple 8-pound fish on top waters in the Lily Pad Cove in the middle of summer. You know, you talk about an 8-pound fish in top water, it is on. Like that is
awesome.
what you live for bass fishing, you know?
Oh, that is so awesome.
That's cool.
For the first like several years of my fishing career, I fished a tiny torpedo only.
Dude, I was a jitterbug guy. But
Even when it didn't matter what the conditions were.
I'm with you on the hidden brand lures, but I was a jitterbug guy.
Yeah.
I used jitterbugs. And now it's gone to, Dalberg divers and throwing the old fly rod and that kind of thing. But it's all good.
Yeah. I'm going to stay right there at Lake Fork then.
Yeah?
My go-to, my favorite time of year, the time that I think you should go, Fork there's not a whole lot of times when it's not, a good time to go, unless it's the McDonald's tournament. But my favorite time of year is early March. And it depends on the weather sometimes, but you can even, late February, probably the best overall day that I've ever had on Fork was February 22nd. We had like a week hot spell. And when we're talking hot spell, you're looking for really 50s to 60s at night, really. Like the nights are what makes the difference a lot of times on Fork because, you can get 75 in the day, but if you get down to the upper 30s at night, the lake's temperature is still going to stay pretty cold.
Kind of like right now?
Kind of like right now.
Kind of like right now.
And there have been some big fish caught at Fork this year. But we had, like I said, in late February, we had a day where we were just hopping along bank fishing in the evening, and in about hour and a half or two, probably about 2 hours, we had like 13 between my dad and I. It's pretty good,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if we're catching 5 or more, we're happy in the evening. And so we had like 13, and we get back to the back, and it's like it starts to get that like golden hour, like close to sunset. And we look over like right across the cove, and I'm like, they're schooling over there. And so this is back in the back, close to a creek bend, and but up on the flat. And they're schooling. So we like take off over there, and we start chunking, and in the next 30 minutes, we ended up with 48 total.
Oh, man.
Up to 8 pounds.
Oh.
Jeez.
It was, and this is like February, man. And apparently, like with that warm spell, I guess a group of shad had just come in to the back, migrated back, and bass just followed them probably from that deep water.
Man.
And it was nuts. But in March, early March, March 10th was when I caught the biggest fish I've caught. And the same area. But that time of year, the fish, those big females are moving up and like staging on like secondary points if the water's right. In close to creek bends, close to big stumps and stuff like that. We don't have the grass we used to have. And man, it can be like if you're fishing like 3 foot is going to be like the shallow side of what you want to fish really. But I mean, out to like 8-10 foot sometimes they'll be staging on those big stumps, and man, throwing a jerk bait and letting it sit right next to one of those things for a second. You can catch some fish that, like every time I set the hook that time of year, it's like I'm scared of what might be on there. It's scary.
All right. Well, I'm going to change things up a little bit. Go
it.
back to some river fishing. So this is going to be the White River and Norfolk River in northern Arkansas. So we get people come to the shop all the time. They're like, I want to do some trout fishing. Yeah, there's a trout fishery about 3 hours away. But if I really want to trout fish and get in some really good quality water without like 2,000 other people looking over my shoulder, northern Arkansas is where to go. Mm-hmm. About 7.5 hour drive from here. And the awesome thing about the White Norfolk, not only are there world-class trout fisheries, but you've got probably about 48 to 60 miles of water that you can fish between the two rivers. And so you've got 2 tailwaters. My favorite thing to do is I've done this like once, and it makes me want to go back there every time I think about it, is night fishing with mice.
Oh, dude.
Dirty.
It was freaking fantastic. So some buddies and I went up there. There's a big thing called Streamer Fest at the end of January.
Yeah.
One of the fly shops. We'd gone up there for Streamer Fest. We had a house on one of the shoals. And so we'd been fishing all day and kind of fishing the shoals and drifting the normal indicator with some sow bugs or something below it. And one of my buddies had done a drift trip, but the water was low that week and there were not a lot of big fish moving around. So we'd had dinner and had a cocktail or two, and I'm like, man, I always heard about this night fishing. I'm gonna suit up. So I put on my waders and grabbed my 8-weight and grabbed some mice. Walked out in front of the house and just started throwing as far as I could across the bank and stripping it back. A lot like bass fishing. So talking about throwing top waters for bass and pond fishing, just like that, but with mice at night. And about every 5 minutes you hear this ka-chung.
Oh my gosh.
Every fish was well over 20 inches.
Golly, Wally.
That I landed.
Yeah.
And it was about every 5 to 10 minutes you had a strike. And Buddy and I spent about 2 hours. And it was only about a 100-yard stretch. We would cast, take a couple steps, cast, a couple steps, and we just kind of did like a racetrack through this like 100-yard stretch. But I think about Arkansas, and I'm like, I want to go back just to night fish because that was one of the most coolest things I've ever done. So, yeah.
Yeah,
That
like
is
that.
killer.
You got me. You got the same thing you were talking about earlier. Like I'm gonna be spending some money to
Now
go
we
up there soon.
And that one, so the cool thing about that is there at on the White, there's a state park at Bull Shoals. So now you can camp.
Yeah.
You can camp at the shoals. And there's a lot of people there, but we went to a place called Wildcat Shoals, which is about 8 miles downriver, river miles. And there's a public ramp right there. Well, just like everything else, you got access to the shoals at the ramp, so you just got to walk in the river, and as long as your feet stay wet, you're still legal.
Wow.
And you walk just a little ways down, and you get to that one spot where you're at. And I'd say pick a full moon when it's clear, and just throw big old black streamers and mice, and you're gonna find fish. Man, they're
Yeah.
hanging out there.
Have you fished
cool.
the shad kill there ever?
Man, haven't done that, dude.
Yeah.
I've fished that wintertime, and I've done a couple trips in the summertime. Never hit the shad kill, and then there's also there's a really good like terrestrial hatch, like big foam hoppers.
Really?
You can hit that. Man, I've heard it's as early as like March and April, and I've also heard it like in the fall, right before they start to spawn. Because the spawn there is usually November. And then I've heard of a mythical squirrel hatch.
Squirrel hatch, huh?
Yes. So one of the guides up there that we kind of work with, he's like, dude, there's a squirrel hatch. Like, what? He's like, seriously. So if you ever like look into taimen fishing in Mongolia, they throw these big lemming patterns. He goes, it's like that. You're throwing like squirrel patterns for big trout.
You kidding me?
I know. It's this mythical thing. I've heard about it. I've
You've never seen anything on it though.
never heard anything about it because, there's stuff out there that the people in the know don't talk
Oh,
about.
yeah. It's tight lip.
Dude, I know about tight lip stuff. I think this might be one of those tight lip things. There
So
could be
we're talking baby squirrel patterns
baby squirrel patterns for big trout.
because
I'm like,
they're falling out of the trees.
I'm about to go home and tie some sugar glider patterns.
am I?
My goodness.
It sounds pretty epic. It really does. I'm like, dude, that sounds awesome.
I might have
Yeah.
to try it.
That's crazy.
So, but I will say the big mice patterns at night, northern Arkansas, legit. Done
cool.
that. I think about it all the time when it's cold. I'm like, oh, I need to go back to Arkansas, go night fishing for mice.
Yeah, man.
That's cool.
Well, I'm going to stay in Arkansas, but we're not going to catch fish that big, and that's okay. We are going to use squirrel patterns, but it's a game changer and just little squirrel strips. But so I as well wanted to avoid a certain place
Yeah.
that you mentioned. Last 4th of July, me and the wife wanted to go do something cool. We love being on the river. We both love to fish. What are we going to do? Like the hill country in Texas is much further away than, some of that lower Ouachita, Ozark stuff. So we decided, you know what? I'm going to pick a random river in central Arkansas, and we're going to go there, and I'm going to try to catch some smallmouth.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Went to the Cossatot River in central Arkansas.
I didn't want to guess that, but I was
Yeah.
like, dude, he went and fished the Cossatot.
Yeah, I did, man.
It was in my mind. I was like, that's what he did.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad somebody else. I mean, of course, I figure you probably would know, but I had never heard of it. Looked it up a little bit. They're like, yeah, there's smallmouth there, and I go and catch smallmouth. And it was cool. It was the 4th of July, beautiful weather. All right, nobody around, and I'm catching smallmouth on a 5-weight. on a fly.
Yeah,
And,
that's America right there.
dude,
yeah.
that's what it's all about. And we're down some gravel road in the middle of central Arkansas. You know, there's banjos playing in the background. It's just sweet. You know, that's what it's all
There's
about.
sparklers and Bud Light and hamburgers. Dudes and wife beaters, but God bless America.
We saw an 8-foot timber rattler while we were there. I mean, it was a cool trip.
Dude, that just gave me the heebie-jeebies. Sorry.
They don't go in the water. You'll be fine.
He showed me a picture. It's pretty dirty.
Yeah, but yeah, dude, the Cossatot River, Central Arkansas, go there. Just not while I'm there.
I did the same thing, trying to avoid said river that hasn't been said.
Yeah.
And we did this maybe it was last spring break. No, maybe 2 spring breaks ago. My wife has spring break. I'm not a spring breaker anymore, so like my wife teaches.
But your wife is.
So,
yeah, okay.
Anyway, so we went to the Ouachita National Forest there in western Arkansas. And I cannot remember what river it is. I could look and figure this out, but I haven't so far, and I'm not going to do it right now. But like the water is like glacial blue water.
Yeah.
Where we were at. I don't know if it was that way for you guys.
No,
this
here was just low and clear. Right
It was
there.
unbelievable. The
Yeah.
mountains were legitimate mountains. I was completely thrown aback. I mean, it was just like huge mountains and complete wilderness, remote, nobody around. We drove for an hour down National Forest roads and we saw 2 vehicles pass us for an hour of driving. Like I said, the water was like the prettiest blue I could imagine. Super clear. I caught like I'll say 16-inch trout, probably a 15-inch trout. Rainbow trout, and was catching smallmouth in the same rivers.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Cool,
cool.
man.
It was,
What river is this?
I don't remember. I had to do some checking on that while y'all are
I'm
talking.
trying to think. He's thinking trout and smallmouth. I mean, like Little Missouri, maybe?
I think it was. Yeah, it was Little
Okay.
Missouri. Yeah.
All right.
And man, it was awesome. Like nobody around at all. It was that'd be
Can't beat that.
early mid March. Yeah, it was cool.
All right. So, going through my list right here, where can I keep this freshwater? I'm saving one for the river that hasn't been mentioned yet, the alternative. But I'm going to bring it back to Texas. So, the hill country. I mean, if you're going to fly fish in Texas, the hill country is probably one of the best places to do it. The Frio River in Leakey, Texas. So, the Frio, beautiful, beautiful river. There's a reason why it's called the Frio. It's cold. Trying to catch bass when it's cold. It's a little on the difficult side, especially when the water is as clear as the ice in my whiskey right now. So went down there with my dad. We went in November about 2 years ago. I was like, it pops. So my dad taught me to fly fish. He loves to do it. Says, let's go down the Nueces. We're in a cabin. So he found us a cabin outside Leakey on the river. Beautiful, big old cypress trees lining the bank. Water's 9 feet deep, and you can count pebbles on the bottom, and it's cold. I have never been so frustrated with bass in my life.
Really?
Generally speaking, and you put me on a river with bass, I can catch them. I mean, they got to the point where I was drifting a 12-foot leader with 6X fluorocarbon and a shad pattern underneath it from like 50 feet up in front of a fish. And they would like look at the fly and move aside and then move back in. I was like, what is going on? So we spent 4 days down there. When I fished there, I think I caught one little bluegill on the Frio. But we ended up going to fish the Upper Guad. We fished, I think we went and fished the Pedernales. We fished an Oasis. And there's another river. We fished 4 rivers, in 4 days. But we were based on the Frio, and that's where I had the most frustrating experience ever.
Yeah. So
So I will say the Frio, beautiful scenery, great place to go tubing. Fishing, not so much.
I had my bachelor party at the Frio and had similar experience. So I just went to catching long-ear sunfish and had a blast.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take us a couple rivers north and go to the Llano. And
Beautiful place.
Yeah, this is one of those people may get mad at me for talking about it because,
Dude, there's no secrets on the Llano.
dude, but comparatively to the other rivers, it doesn't get the pressure. You don't see the folks. You don't get the tubers. That's the big thing.
yeah.
You don't get those water sports folks
Right.
and
Too
the
shallow.
parties. Yeah, so me and my buddies from college usually take a late summer kayak trip down the Llano, and we'll do some fishing, camp out on the river, and make use of our very awesome stream access laws here in Texas, where if you're below the bank or whatever, look those up. Don't trust me.
We got that right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. But man, the Llano River, whenever you take in the account that it's usually clear, you can catch Guadalupes, you can catch Rio Grande cichlids, you can catch a largemouth, you can catch smallmouths, even though they're kind of problematic. You can catch yellow cats, you can catch channel cats, you can catch every sunfish imaginable. It is, and not to mention the carp that are giants in there if you can get them to hit. And then in the winter, old boy stocks trout up the way. Now, I'm not a big fan of stalkers, but hey, they're there. That's another species to catch. It's kind of fun. You add that with some delicious turkey sausage and barbecue from Llano, Texas. Oh,
You must have been going to Cooper's.
Well,
Coopers.
Cooper's is where the
wait.
barbecue is.
Yeah.
Across the street, up the hills, Inman's Kitchen. That's where the turkey sausage is.
Ah.
Not saying one's better than the other. You should go to both. That's what I think. So, yeah,
I just
Cooper's.
added another thing of things I need to do
Dude,
this summer.
Inman's Kitchen.
Edmund's Kitchen.
Yep, turkey sausage. The beans are terrific.
Is that in Cooper or is it in Mason or
That is in Llano.
in Llano
That
itself?
is in
Okay.
Llano. It is Llano proper. Yeah. So, yeah, go there and then just.
I'm seriously like, y'all can't see this. I'm writing this down. I'm a Texas barbecue connoisseur, and so we're gonna sidetrack real quick.
Yep.
I've often thought like one of the best books you could write is a guide to fly fishing Texas with barbecue.
Dude, that would be
Like
killer.
Dude, we need to make a road map.
Seriously, a buddy of mine, we started this for a little while. We got about 6 cities in,
Yeah.
and then we got
busy.
sidetracked.
Got busy.
But we're like, dude, we're gonna write the definitive Texas fly fishing and barbecue guidebook.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That's a good idea, man.
That'd
Right.
be cool.
Hey, I encourage you to finish that off someday.
I know.
I would
Someday,
love to. I
someday.
would buy it, man. I would buy
Yeah.
it. But
Some-
I would expect you to give it to me for free, too. So
I might be able to do something for you.
So mine is the Llano River from Mason to Llano, Texas.
Sure. Well, I'm going to stay kind of, I guess, real close to Hill Country. And we're going to move up north to the Paluxy River. I had this idea and forgot to write it down. And then Sean reminded me before we started this thing that river existed. And I have fished it several times. My wife went to school at Tarleton State. And so it was kind of one of those like, I can make a double
Right.
date out of this thing, and go see my wife at school, and then we can go up to Dinosaur Valley State Park and fish the Paluxy there. And I fished outside the park a little bit. In the park, it's really skinny water. At least every time I fished it, there's a couple little holes. There are dinosaur tracks in the riverbed, legitimate, looking like T-Rex. I don't know what kind they are, but
Triceratops.
they're awesome looking.
And they actually identified a new species of dinosaur in the river.
Really?
Yeah, there's its own species. Now I'll say not recently, like back in the 20s, they excavated because they sent some of the tracks to the 1920s World's Fair, and there's a dinosaur that's like the Paluxysaurus or something.
Oh
that's
yeah,
down
that's
there.
right. Yep, I did know that.
But you see a lot of Triceratops tracks.
Yeah, so it's cool. And then you can go see those while you're fishing, and then you can turn around. And recently, I did this. This was actually what we did last year for spring break. So I don't remember when the West Arkansas thing was, but the Paluxy River last year we went, and I was just throwing bead heads because I was just trying to catch stuff. And man, I caught some decent bluegills and stuff, but I was slamming the 6 to 8, maybe a 9 or 10 inch spotted bass in there on a half weight with just like pheasant tail, and it was a blast. It's good. It's a cool place to go. Take if you got a family or even a wife that might think that dinosaur tracks are cool, you can go fish it for an hour and a half, and you're not too far. It's not some big destination trip necessarily, but
I think
cool.
on the Paluxy, the cool thing about the Paluxy is that a lot of people think about it and ask about it, but when it comes down to fishing, it's just far enough away from the Metroplex that people really won't go down there. I mean, if I have a home water, it's the Paluxy. I've spent more days fishing that river than any other place on earth. Mm-hmm. But like I've maybe seen, if I counted total, 40 people.
Wow.
Like the entire, like throughout the years, 40 other people fishing that river.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a cool spot to go to.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So it's worth it.
Cool.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the hill country.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Nueces River in Camp Wood. That river is probably one of my favorite little hill country places that, in case you was talking about the Llano not getting a lot of pressure, I think Nueces gets even less pressure. I mean, I think, so it's, if you look on the map, it is the river due east of the Devils. So you've got like the Devils, then you've got the Nueces, and so similar type of water, just more access. It's there in Camp Wood. Kind of goes from Barksdale down to Uvalde. Super, super crystal clear water, full of Rios, bluegills, guads. So if you want to catch a pure strain guad, it's one of the few rivers left with pure strain guads.
I do want to do that.
It's got tilapia in it and just absolutely gorgeous. And the cool thing is access on that is absolutely amazing. That there are numerous stream crossings, especially south of town, that you just pull up, park, jump in the river, and start fishing. Buddy of mine went down there. We stayed at some cabins in town that actually had a river access across the street. They owned the property, so you could fish there in town. But then we just kind of took a road map, found these road crossings. I mean, we were walking, not a whole lot, but we were walking 3 or 4 miles a day. You know, we'd walk like 2 miles upstream, 2 miles back. Mm-hmm. The only sign of life we saw is occasionally you run across like a Mexican cell phone or a backpack on the side of the river.
Oh.
And then you'd see Border Patrol
like
sitting up on top of a bluff watching you. Mm-hmm. But that was it for human contact.
Yeah.
We saw more hogs than we saw people.
That's killer.
Dude,
That's cool.
But yeah, it's
that sounds awesome.
if you're trying to figure out where it's at, so if you were to go down to San Antonio, it's like an hour and a half due west of San Antonio, and just absolutely gorgeous piece of water, kind of rugged. It's on that Chihuahua Desert, but zero pressure and great fishing.
It's cool.
That would be cool.
So I'm going to go to something that has a ton of pressure. So we're talking about Llano a while ago. We're going to venture back in the hunting realm here. As a young teenager, I thought it was cool to go on dailies hunts whenever I was a kid. And there was a hunt in Llano. I think it's still there to this day. If you look on Craigslist or something, day hunt, $75 a day. Don't even think about it. All right.
I'd say most day hunts that are $75 a day might not be worth it.
It was bad. So, point is, this place was terrible. If you want to go have the hill country experience, do it. But, man, day leases in Llano, or anywhere for that matter, but my experience was in Llano. Don't cheap out on the day lease, man. Get something decent.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take us to just a little bit north to a river that has been mentioned several times in this podcast. This is the Lower Mountain Fork River in Oklahoma.
Wait, we haven't mentioned that. We just referred to it.
We alluded to it. We danced around.
There have been allusions. This river is not a river that you want to go to. I have had a 30-fish afternoon on this river. And they're stalker trout, but they're fun. This was several years ago.
Yes.
There have been many floods. Dallas is growing outrageously.
Yep.
And the tourism in that area has bolstered. And they're like building cabins right now. And if you want somebody to build you a cabin out there right now, oh, sorry, I'm 9 months out from building my next cabin, or building your cabin. I mean, it's unreal how fast it's growing out there, and it's shoulder to shoulder.
4 years ago, there were 500 cabins for rent in McCurtain County. 4 years ago, and it's probably doubled that by this point.
It's crazy. There's restaurants. There's people everywhere, and it's a great place. Like,
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's accessible. It's kind of wild, but
growing less by the day.
At the end of the day, there's only like 2 miles of trout water.
Yeah.
And that's
rough.
being generous.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
being generous. There's 2 miles of water to fish. And you're
Even-
going up there, and I have gone up to the evening hole and counted 40 freaking people in a 200-yard stretch.
Stacked in there for not moving for 2 hours, just
Yes.
casting the same
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah.
And you're like, there ain't
And
no
it's
trout
funny
there.
that, when I started working in fly shops, going on like 15 years now, that the first 10 years, Broken Bow was definitely a place that people went to. People asked about it. We had regulars that would come in here and they're buying flies, buying leaders. They're going to Broken Bow every weekend. I'd say in the last 2 years, it's gotten to the point where now my Broken Bow customer is, I've never been up there. I want to go check it out. They buy flies, and then they never go back again. And I think it's just gotten to the point, it's just like, just not enough water and too many people.
Yeah.
So I'm going to vote the Broken Bow. Unless you're going to go in the middle of the week, like during the school year,
In terrible weather.
in terrible weather. That's the only time I go up there.
Yeah, I
is
still
it.
feel like that with the floods they had, it just blasted some trout out of that
Oh,
area.
yeah.
I mean, there's just not the numbers that there used to be, and the river actually changed its course, so they had such a violent flood.
Yeah. So I will give something a little bit anecdotal and give a little sunshine to the rain here. That's the lower Mountain Fork. Have you ever been to the upper Mountain Fork above the reservoir?
I have gone up there to fish the Narrows for sand bass.
Okay.
That's
yeah.
the most I've done. But
Okay,
please
so
expand upon it.
just downriver from the Narrows, I believe, I found a hole down there, a little shady hole. I pulled out a 3-pound channel cat and about 4 largemouth out of this hole. Never seen a fly in their life.
I
We're
believe
just
that.
as eager as it gets.
Yep.
And it was so cool. And the reason I was there is because the lower was intolerable that day.
Yeah.
There's too many folks.
Yeah.
And it's cool, but I can do that here. So I'm not going to make the trip for it. But just so you know, there is more water to go to. So that's it.
Well, I'm going to add to this because we like to follow our paths.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you take the lower Mountain Fork through Zone 3, down past Highway 70, it eventually hits another river, about 20 miles, called the Little River, which the Little River then flows east into Arkansas. I will advocate for the Little River. I've done that float trip several times. I've got some friends that have a house at the Little River Club outside of it's not DeKalb, that's in Texas. DeQueen. So outside DeQueen, there's a Little River Club. And so we actually went and put in canoes and a John boat on the Oklahoma side and floated about 12 miles back to their house. Really pretty water without a lot of pressure.
Wow.
So we got in a largemouth, huge gar, and
On fly?
on fly, all
Cool.
on fly.
Cool.
No smallies. I was really looking for smallies, but no smallies. But largemouth, sunfish, and gar all on fly and about a 12-mile float on the Little River. Now, I will say that the hard part about Little River is access. That there is a public put-in in Oklahoma that if you go to that put-in and stay near your car, you're okay. Don't leave your car and float down because there's a good chance your car might be burned up, broken into.
It gets kind of rough.
Whatever the best of Curtin County wants to do. But I will say the Little River for a good river to float and fish is actually a good alternative to the lower Mountain Fork River.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, since you're on the gar thing,
Uh-huh.
I have a deep love for the longfish that is known as the gar. And we are actually sitting right next door to the greatest gar fishery in all the land, right? I've actually never fished this area, but
we are connected to the greatest gar
Yeah.
fishery. I mean, it's in the same river.
It's
We're
the
just
river.
like 200 miles north of the
yeah.
good stuff.
So that's where I love. And I love all gar fishing because gar are aggressive, man. They like to smack stuff, and it's cool, and they love flies. I I've done both fly fishing and conventional for alligator gar. I can say that it is really, really tough to sink a hook in alligator gar's jaw with a fly rod. I've not had a lot of success. I've caught some small ones. I've hooked a 6-footer and had him on for just a little bit, But the Trinity River, they're kind of that middle stretch, which is like kind of between Athens, Corsicana, like south, down to around Riverside. Through there, if you can go down there with a big hunk of buffalo on a hook and float underneath a bobber, there's a chance that you're going to catch a fish that's longer than you are. And it is absolutely sick. It is the coolest thing, man. I love it.
We caught a 60-pounder right here.
Did you really?
Wow.
Was it alligator or was it longer?
Alligator.
Yeah.
Which surprised me that alligators were this far north.
Yeah.
I didn't think they would be up here, but yeah, there was a 60-pound alligator, like literally 150 yards from where we're sitting.
That's cool, man. Yeah, so come to Tailwaters. You can go outside and catch a giant fish.
That's right. That's right. Make sure you buy the rod first.
Yeah.
All right, so I hate to do this to you guys. We're going to cut that right here. This was a super long podcast. We were really getting into the stories. The next part 2 or part B, whatever we decide to do, will be releasing within the next couple days. So it'll be a quick turnaround. We'll get it to you guys, and y'all can listen to the rest of these destinations if you're getting into this. KC?
All right, so for this episode, to kind of show y'all what things are all about and to kind of, I guess, celebrate the fact that we've had 60 episodes. Kind of cool. We did this whole 60 places thing. We're going to try to showcase at least most of these 60 places on our Instagram story. So keep up with us. If you don't already, subscribe to our Instagram page, The Element Podcast. And throughout this week, we'll be posting pictures from all of our experiences at all these cool places. And be sure to check out part 2 with Sean Polk from Tailwaters Fly Fishing Company later in the week.
For sure. And they didn't have cameras back when you were doing some of this stuff, but
It's true.
But we've got a lot of pictures from this stuff, and we're going to be releasing that throughout the week, so it won't all be in one day. But keep up with the story, man. Check in on us, and we'll get back with you soon. Remember, this is your element.
Live in it.